Welcome back to the Something in the Wilderness podcast, where we select an Andrew McMahon song from his catalog each episode, and then we deep dive into it, hoping to learn something new about the artist and his songs. Today we're talking about a song that I admittedly didn't know existed until May 5th, 2020. And I know exactly which day it was that I learned about it because that's when Andrew played it on his Instagram live stream. And besides a handful of listens on YouTube since, I haven't thought too much about the song since. At least not until Lindsay reached out to me recently. And she asked me if I wanted to take on the challenge of talking about one of her favorite Andrew rarities. So, welcome to the show, Lindsay.
Hi.
Why don't you start off by just telling us a bit about yourself?
So I am from the Chicago suburbs. I'm a dog mom, and I work as a nurse practitioner in surgery, but that's about it.
Well, why don't you tell us about how you first came about Andrew's music?
So I grew up in a real small town, and most people listen to country music, and that is not my jam. And I ended up going away to college and met a couple of friends in college that were more into like the punk pop scene. One of them, her name's Sarah, she was very into Something Corporate and had introduced me into that. And then I don't know how I didn't make the connection that Something Corporate and Jack's Mannequin were basically the same thing, but really would only listen to Something Corporate in her car. And then one of my best friends from college, her name's Hillary, she introduced me to Everything in Transit, and I just absolutely fell in love.
So Everything in Transit was more of like you're falling into the fanhood, but Something Corporate was something you were familiar with and enjoyed on the side. Okay.
Actually, I met my husband in college, and he's from Rockford, and so we moved to Rockford, and I was like, oh, there's a song about Rockford.
Yeah.
And when I had mentioned that to a friend of mine, she's like, yeah, I think it's actually about that Rockford. And I was like, oh, wow, that's really exciting. So
absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of like my connection with the Ohio song. It's like, oh, he mentioned Ohio.
Yeah.
And I imagine maybe people in Tucson feel the same way, and other places around too. So
yeah, absolutely.
Poughkeepsie, I've heard that one. Someone referenced that one before as something that they're connected to. So, well, did you hear the latest news? Just found out on Sunday night. We got a hint Sunday night, and big news dropped on Monday morning officially, and now it's Tuesday. Did you hear?
Yes, devastatingly.
Devastatingly? Tell me about that. Why is Andrew's tour devastating?
So I saw this story, and I tell my husband Sunday night, I'm like, oh my God, he's going to be announcing a tour tomorrow. It's going to be wonderful. And then the dates popped up, and then Chicago was totally left off. And then I was like, okay, well, I guess we're either going to St. Louis or to Minneapolis, because those are the two closest to us. But I actually think we're going to do a little bit longer of a trip.
Oh, wow. So you are going to the tour.
I am. We bought tickets today to go see him in Arizona because, as I'm sure you're aware.
Oh, Arizona.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's pretty far from Chicago. Yeah. That's not what I expected you to say.
No. So, the Andrew McMahon fan group is amazing.
Yes.
And I have met so many friends through that. And one of our friends lives down in Arizona. So myself and another friend, I think, are going to be joining down there.
I've met an Andrew fan from Arizona. Well, I think he's from Michigan or Ohio originally, but he was at one of the Michigan shows last year, and he said he flew in from Arizona, and I was like, wow.
Yes.
That's commitment.
That's who will be joining.
Oh, okay. Very cool. All right. Were you at the Pontiac shows last year, too?
I was.
Oh, wow.
I only went to the first night because of it being my husband's birthday, and I felt like it was mean to skip out on his birthday. So I went to the first show and then drove home, and then sadly missed meeting him on the second night with everybody. So
Wow. So we've almost met before in person. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I met a bunch of Andrew fans that weekend. That was kind of my in-person introduction to the Andrew fan group, if you will. Whereas I've felt the online presence for a while through the Facebook group and now through Pillar that I'm on. I ended up buying tickets as well to all three shows in Ohio.
Yeah, you guys lucked out. It's crazy.
I'm obviously very close to Columbus, but about 2 hours from Cincy and about 2 hours from Cleveland. So we're right smack in the middle of it all, of all these shows. So I decided to skip Indy for that reason, even though I know several people going. And I might still think about it, but the fact that it's a weekday, there's 5 hours between Indy and Cleveland. That was the big issue. Like when I looked at that, I'd have to drive 5 hours on that next day. That's why I decided to skip out on that one for now. but I did commit to 3. We bought seats at 2 of the 3 venues that we bought tickets for, and so I'm just like, I'm gonna walk in before the opening band starts and get my seat.
Yeah, honestly, hanging out in lines is one of the most fun things. And
Is it?
so,
Maybe I ought to consider it.
yeah, so I heard you talking about getting to meet Andrew, and the very first time I met Andrew was because I went to a show early. It was the first time I had gone to a show by myself. He was playing Lollapalooza. He ended up doing the after show at Bottom Lounge, which is a smaller venue
Okay.
in the city, and I had gotten tickets to it and sat down. And the girl that I sat down next to, her name's Caitlin. She happened to be from Chicago, or I'm sorry, from Rockford also, because at the time I was still living out there.
Mm-hmm.
So we struck up a conversation. She is a wonderful person. When Andrew showed up to the venue before the show, he, met people and signed autographs pre-show, and she made sure that I got to meet him and talk to him. So that was really cool. She just like kind of flagged him down and was like, "Hey, she would really like to meet you." And so it was a
Wow.
very cool experience and just like a testament to how nice Andrew McMahon friends are.
Did you know that my experience meeting him was very similar? Very similarly, we were at a bar right before the Pontiac show, and I had agreed to meet up with some people I had never met before, but we were like, oh, well, we're all going to get the pod together. And they were outside, and they texted me, and they were like, hey, come out here. He's here. And they were like, look, there he is, like knowing I'd never met him before. And so it was kind of the same thing. Like, they gave me that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have Tracy, Dawn, and Diane to thank for that, so...
Yeah, they're wonderful too.
Yeah, so that was so nice of them. And then again the following night, it was Andrew and his wife Michelle, Andrew a fan that we shared a pod with, and then they texted me afterward and they were like, "Hey, we're out back. Andrew's out here signing things and just talking to people." And we were like, "Oh my gosh!" So then my wife got to meet him. So
Yeah. And people are just so respectful and so
yeah,
willing to share. It's amazing. It really is a testament to like the kind of community that he's built and surrounded himself with.
absolutely. Well, there's no doubt that the song we're discussing today is definitely a rarity and not one that he plays in concert. Some people call it a B-side, some may call it a deep cut. And like I said, I wasn't familiar with this one until just 2 years ago. So the song Lindsay wanted to talk about today was Out of It. And the strangest thing about this song for me, I got to tell you, is that it was a bonus track on certain copies of People and Things, apparently. But when I bought People and Things on iTunes in 2011, when it came out, my copy, and you may know this, it included 4 different bonus tracks
Yep.
on iTunes. So I think we definitely have to talk about that. But first, I'll kind of give the stats here. So the band is Jack's Mannequin. The album was People and Things, and apparently it was on the Best Buy bonus version, which all the research I had done before you sent me what you sent me, and I'll get to that in a second, I thought it was a separate CD altogether. Anyway, the CD came out on October 4th, 2011, and I just want to tell you, Lindsay, I appreciate you sending me those pictures. So Lindsay, if you're listening, Lindsay sent me pictures of the liner notes of her copy of People and Things, which I had never seen that version, so it was just like kind of alternate reality for me, looking at this like People and Things copy I had never seen before, completely unlike my own, because I've since purchased the physical CD just in the last couple of years, and it doesn't have any bonus tracks with it. So I simply had no idea that there was an actual disc with, 14 songs on it, again, different from the ones I got in iTunes. So it was so strange to me to see that. I was familiar with the other 2 songs by the time you sent that to me, but those other 2 songs are fairly new to me as well, actually.
Yeah, so let me ask you, because I know you've talked about this like series of 4 before, and you said that it was all slow songs, and so it kind of wasn't the greatest ending in the world based on the version
Right.
that you had.
Yeah.
Did you go back and listen to it with the 14 track, like the last 4 of the ones that I sent you at all?
No, that's a fantastic idea. One thing that I'm going to have trouble with is I don't like listening to music on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not on Spotify, so I can't just add it to my playlist. So I'll do that for the purpose of being able to listen to it all the way through like that, because I love doing, you can tell because you asked me that, I can tell that I love listening to the complete album, and I'm fascinated by the order of tracks and things like that. I'm glad you brought that up. But I haven't tried that, and I don't know, I don't like listening to music on YouTube because you got to pull up the video, and I got to leave it open on my phone, and usually usually most of what I'm doing throughout the day and night don't really cater to that type, to like leaving a video open to just to listen to music. Now I do watch videos, of course, like live streams and things like that, but I don't know. I just feel like that's different. I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing for me. It's like, oh, I don't want to have to listen to it on YouTube.
Yeah. Well, that's the only way you can.
I know.
Which is really frustrating.
Yeah. So hopefully one day, I know that I think it was Broken Bird that just came out on Spotify like last year or the year before, or something, just in the last few years.
Yeah, it was recent.
Yeah, so maybe one day we'll get out of it on Spotify. But yeah, that was pretty cool to see. So I do appreciate that. It would be really interesting. So I've got to ask you, wasn't it a shock when you first listened through that CD and you heard Restless Dream and it was so beautiful, and then it goes into Out of It?
I would say not really. I don't know. I mean, this is the only version I ever knew, right? So
Yeah.
I collect vinyl. I have People and Things on vinyl. And it's the version that you're referring to, basically. I mean, I guess it doesn't have any of the bonus tracks
Yeah, 11
really in it.
tracks. Ends with Restless Dream.
Yeah. So I'm used to that, and it almost feels more like to me, after the show ends and then there's like clapping and then the encore and it can be anything. That's almost what it feels like.
Oh.
Which is actually probably kind of a recurring theme, I would say, with this song to me.
Okay. I assume we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
And by the way, I want to be clear. When I said that Restless Dream's so beautiful and the way it ends and then you get this, I didn't mean that Out of It is a bad song, and I'll talk more about my opinion. I just meant like the way it hits, so different from Restless Dream. It's like I could see sitting on a pair of headphones with Restless Dream being like, oh, that's so nice. And then all of a sudden the guitar of Out of It hits you and you're like, what is this?
Yeah.
So it's an interesting dynamic there. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to go into this more now? We can.
No, we can. Yeah, we'll come back to that when we
Okay.
get to the sound and stuff.
Yeah.
But I do want to make sure that you hit all your points. But
Yeah.
I'm going to say the second most surprising thing to me about this, and I guess it shouldn't have been surprising, is that Jim Wirt is the only credited producer on this track, which makes perfect sense in hindsight because it's from apparently the Glass Passenger sessions or around that time, as well as he's the producer on the other two tracks. And no sign of Jim Scott and Rob Cavallo to be found anywhere in the credits for these songs, but it makes sense. It's because he didn't work with those guys yet.
Right.
They just happen to tag these tracks onto the end of the Rob Cavallo and Jim Scott album. But you can definitely tell the difference in the sound, which we'll get more into. But yeah, so it shouldn't be really surprising, but it kind of was, and it kind of, I don't know, almost warmed my heart a little bit because I was like, oh, it's back to Jim Wirt, like the first two Jack's Mannequin albums and all the Something Corporate stuff. So I guess I have a soft spot for that, and I hope one day that Andrew would consider working with Jim Wirt again. And I don't know if that's a possibility, but I just love the stuff so much that he produced.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like you can really tell a sound difference between the albums that he did and then when he was no longer producing.
Yeah.
A friend of mine calls it California stoner rock for his first album, which I mean, I feel like is maybe a little spot on there, based on the content of some of the songs. But it really is. It's that laid back, really mellow feeling, like you can just go out and enjoy it on a beach, and I think that he kind of got away from that a little bit.
Yeah, he did on the third Jack's album for sure. And then moving forward, I guess you could say that too. So knowing that this was kind of left over from what they called the Glass Passenger sessions, or kind of the same time frame as Glass Passenger, do you feel like it fits with that album or not? Or is it kind of its own separate entity? Yeah,
so in doing some of the research for this along with you, I rewatched Dear Jack because I'm like, this, I mean, we'll talk about it more later, but how this fits in to the music and the timeline and everything. And then I rewatched that live stream, and he kind of talks more about when it is, but it actually feels like the encore to Everything in Transit to me.
Yes.
It feels very much like, if how he put out Pop Underground and it kind of bridged from Jack's Mannequin going into Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness.
Yep.
It feels like if he would have put an album out with that on it, it would have bridged right into Glass Passenger.
EP right there between Everything Transit and Glass Passenger. I
Yeah.
didn't think about it that way, but you're absolutely right. Because I was going to say something similar, but I like the way that you put that. Not to jump too far ahead, but the fact that he says 23 in the lyrics,
Yeah.
which kind of reminds me of a song on North. I feel like it has a little bit of a North vibe to it, sort of, but definitely sounds more like an Everything in Transit or post Everything in Transit type of track. So I have all these, like, for whatever reason, when I hear a new Andrew song, whether it's brand new or it's one that came out 10 years ago and I just heard it for the first time, I try to put it in a box, and I shouldn't do that, but I do. And so that's where all these thoughts come from. But I really like the way you put that. It feels like it could have been like that gap, that bridgeway gap between Everything in Transit and the Glass Passenger for sure.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it does fit in with the Glass Passenger much, but
Now, I mean, if I were making the record and it needed to go on Glass Passenger, since it was the demo for Glass Passenger, I know exactly the song I would kick off of Glass Passenger for it. So
okay. So can I give you my take on that? And it's
Yeah.
even maybe a little rougher to fans.
Yeah.
I have several I could lose to gain this song.
Yes.
But, I mean, that also speaks to how much I do like this song. So the cat's out of the bag. I really like this song. You know, again, I'll get more into that. But yeah, there's just some songs on the Glass Passenger. So I asked you if you thought this like fit with the Glass Passenger. Well, my take is that there's songs on the Glass Passenger that didn't fit on the Glass Passenger, in my opinion. But that's,
I would agree with that.
yeah, I don't know if that's a popular opinion among the fan base, but some people really love the Glass Passenger. And I do. I love the majority of it.
Yeah.
But there's a few songs that I'm like, wow, that was kind of out of left field. This one feels like it could be a little bit more at home, but not quite right on Glass Passenger. I don't know. So again, I like the way you put that.
Yeah.
I do know this was recorded at Sound City Studios. I found that out from his Instagram live stream that he did. It was during the same writing sessions as Cell Phone, another song called Balloons, which I've never heard Balloons before. I don't know where to get that song. And it was it was written during his surgery recovery before the Glass Passenger, apparently. So it was there and ready to go. Apparently, it could have been ready to go for that album, but it just didn't make the cut for some reason. I'm always curious to know those things that we'll probably never know. Mm-hmm. It's just some things that happen, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, he did talk in the live stream that the decision, for whatever reason, was made, whether it was like this, not studio, the higher ups, helping guide that decision, or if he made that decision.
That's
that
right.
This could have gone in a very different direction. And now I'm like super curious about that alternate universe.
Oh my gosh, you're right. It's coming back to me now. Yeah, that he said it was a little too, what's the word he used?
Maybe risky? Was it risky, he said, or something?
I would say the word is related to what you said, the way your friend described that era of Andrew McMahon, like California stoner rock.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he had a word for it in that live stream. So you know what? If you're listening, just go ahead and watch the live stream. I'll link it in the show notes, and you'll get to hear him talk about it because he gives a good like 1 or 2 minute breakdown on the story behind it. So that speaking of which, let's move on to live history because that's the only time, and if you want to call an Instagram live stream live, that's the only time I've ever heard him play this song, quote, live.
Yeah.
Do you know of any other time he's ever played it?
None, but if he comes to Chicago, surprisingly, on this tour and wants to play it, I will not be sad about it at all.
Oh, I wouldn't be either. I think it would be a banger of a song in concert.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's loud, it's aggressive, it has energy, a little bit of everything, and I would be shocked if he played it, but I would not complain. So I guess we can start the campaign right now.
That'd be great.
Somewhere on this tour, if he does make a surprise in Chicago on the tour or
Arizona or nothing.
But I'd be okay with anywhere in Ohio, to anywhere down the line.
Yeah.
I'm the kind of person who I'm always kind of looking for those, not just deep cuts, but like songs he doesn't normally play. Like, give me some songs that I haven't heard live before. I'm always kind of looking for that. So I'll keep waiting. But
Yeah, I agree.
yeah, I think every tour he surprised me with maybe one. It was She Paints Me Blue on this last tour. That was kind of one I don't think I'd heard since the Something Corporate days. So
Yeah, that's a great one too.
yeah, I did. So you watch. Sounds like you watched the Instagram live stream then, right?
I did. So I was actually at the time working in Chicago doing overnight coverage in one of the hospitals. He would do those live streams and I would catch him when I could. And that happened to be one of the nights that I was able to catch it.
Hmm.
And it was, a very nice change of pace based on what was going on in my work life to be able to just sit down and enjoy one of those concerts and see that and then to hear, one of my favorite songs get performed. So,
Oh my gosh. In your line of work at that moment in time and for like the last 2 years, I cannot even imagine. Thank you for what you do. Yeah, it's I think it's so hard for us to even comprehend if we're not in the medical community in the medical field. But that's super nice that you got that chance to relax in the middle of all that. I mean, May of 2020, our heads were all spinning. Your job was probably so nuts, probably still is.
I think everyone's jobs kind of went crazy. I always felt very fortunate that I had a job through that. And I know a lot of
Right.
people got displaced,
Hmm.
and, that I felt like I was helping in some fashion. It definitely was something that, in particular, in this situation, they had taken us all up and divvied us up, and we weren't allowed to be in the same room with each other anymore while we were at work. And so, you're used to a very community atmosphere,
Right.
and suddenly I'm shoved into this tiny room and I can't interact with people unless I absolutely have to go see a patient because we're trying to make sure we're not taking entire teams of people out sick
Yeah.
and then going home to an apartment in the city and our lakefront had gotten shut down and so you couldn't even really go and enjoy the outdoors at that point, so it was just like a nice minute to have where you felt like you were in with a community of people. And then this song in particular had some meaning to me in general, and then just the lyrics of it when you listen to it and hear and you can just like really you can kind of like apply it to what was going on in that situation a little bit, even though I know that's not what he wrote it about.
I gotta admit, this was not the song that comforted me during that time, just because I didn't know it. That was the first time I'd ever heard it, so it was
Yeah.
like, huh, what is this? Okay, I'll listen. Cool, it's Andrew.
Yeah.
But there were definitely almost every other song. It was like, just warmed my heart. I mean, just having him perform. It's like whatever,
Yeah.
perform whatever you want. Like this is we don't have anything else right now to look
Right,
forward to.
right.
And hopefully he gave you a little bit of a laugh that night too, because
Oh my
he
gosh.
he kind of messed up when he played it a little bit. He was like, "Can you guys help me with the lyrics? I don't." And during the second verse, I don't know the other lyrics, and people were helping him out. I was of no help, but I would have had to Google it. But I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, honestly, I think that's one of the best things though about seeing him live is
Hmm.
that he's willing to take those risks and not play exactly the songs out of his catalog that he always plays so everything is perfect every single time. Like some of just the camaraderie that goes into that is it's fun, and it's fun to see like, oh yeah, he worked on this and it had a special place for him at one point in time, but now I feel like that's almost like a gift, right? Like the music to me is kind of like a gift that you're given and you get to take and you get to interpret and you get to apply it to your life and you get to enjoy it. And then it's out there. And so now it's like kind of a gift back to him. Like, here were your words.
I love his candid nature as well. When he's with others, whether he's shaking your hand in line, or talking to you after the show, or up on stage playing a show, or in this case on a live stream. So I do love
Yeah.
his candid nature and how real he seems, and I think he understands the value of that. It's just, hey, I'm just gonna be real. I'm just gonna be myself because these people seem to like that. So and we
Yeah.
appreciate that. But yeah, I thought that was pretty entertaining. Let's talk live music in general. Like, how many times have you seen Andrew live? Do you know?
Somewhere in the neighborhood of 20.
Okay, so you're like a lot like most Andrew fans I talk to. You guys like go to all the tours. See, I'm a little short on that, so I think I might hit like just under 20 this summer. But I've seen him
Mhm.
a lot more in these past few years than I had in the previous, 15. So,
Live music to me is like you feel like you're just being nourished. So I really
mhm,
enjoy going to as many concerts as possible. And then, some of the friends that I met along the way from waiting in those lines and getting to know people in the community,
mhm.
like Caitlin and my friend Laura, like that's something that we do together. And it,
Yeah.
it feels like a fun outing to have and time to spend together. And so I just really enjoy trying to go and, enjoy the live music and enjoy my friends with it.
Yeah, the majority of concerts I go to, I have to say, I go 100% for the music. But honestly, these last few Andrew shows have made me realize how important that sense of friendship and community and just
Hmm.
being with others and experiencing it together. So all the other things that come with going to the show as well, the
Hmm.
before, the during, the after, how important all that stuff is too. So that's why I want to go to 3 shows because I'll catch it all between 3 shows, but hopefully I can also get a chance just to kind of enjoy myself with others as well.
Yeah, there's, something that I always knew but didn't quite realize how profound the effect is that standing in that crowd of people, and even though sometimes there's people that stand in your way, or, maybe they
Hmm.
sing a little loud and off key or whatever it is, and so you get a little
Sorry.
bit
So
annoyed. Yeah,
sorry.
no, it's fine, you're allowed. But you get a little bit annoyed by the people around you in shows. But we went to the drive-in that he did
Hmm.
in Chicago, and it was such a different experience. It didn't even really feel like you were at a concert to me
Hmm.
because everyone was so spaced out and you were
Yeah.
just kind of relegated. And I kind of felt the way even with the pod shows that it just, you didn't get that body buzz rush of energy because everyone was just so spread out.
It was harder to feel the energy. I agree with that. I
Hmm.
appreciated having the space, especially
Yes.
during that time, obviously.
Yes.
It was a bonding experience with the people I shared a pod with, that's for sure. But
Sure.
those are the
Yeah.
only people you got to bond with. And then the second night, we all split up anyway because there was several open pods, and so we just kind of all took our own that were a little bit closer to the stage. So
Yeah.
yeah, so my wife and I enjoyed it together, but away from everyone else. So it was cool in a way, but yeah, you don't feel the energy like you do in the crowd. I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, so you ready to talk about the song specifically now?
Sure.
All right.
Yeah, let's do it.
I have some songwriting notes, and some of this I learned from the live stream that we were just talking about. Some of it I kind of
Yeah.
garnered from other places, but you have the history with the song. You know it better than I do, so you might have something to throw in, and if you do, feel free.
Hmm.
In the live stream, he said he wrote this song about what comes next and not really knowing for sure. And he said he wrote that song as well as Cell Phone and Balloons on that same piano that he was doing the live streams on at the time.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if you remember, he told that story that his doctor had given him some synthetic marijuana in pill form to keep his appetite. And he was living with some friends at the time, and so they all took the pills together. And he's like, it wasn't as good as
Yes.
weed. I mean, you can definitely tell when we get to lyrics, like, I can definitely see that the influence on the lyrics.
Yeah, right.
But I think the most important thing he said about the writing of the song, to me, the thing that connected with me is that it was about looking for this idea. It was this idea about looking for a bright spot during a dark time. As a general theme, everybody can relate to that at some point in their lives. He felt like he spent a fortune making these songs, and then, like you brought up, then the label was like, no, we don't really like this new direction.
Yeah.
Go back to the drawing board and make something else. So,
It's just crazy to me. So he talked about the two friends that he was hanging out with, which kind of, in different facets of this song, kind of harkens back to Made for Each Other when he talks about living with his high school friends.
yeah.
And he tells that story about it being with his high school friends. So it's interesting to me that the label like pushed back so hard against like, oh no, we don't want this. This isn't the right direction, because like he did a song like this already, and this is
Yeah.
kind of like the follow up to it.
Why not?
Hmm.
I don't know. I have to assume that what we did get on the Glass Passenger, and again, I like the majority of the Glass Passenger. Love many of the songs, but I guess that's the direction they wanted, and it's still Andrew.
Yeah.
It's still Jack's Mannequin.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it was just a different version of Jack's Mannequin, I feel like, from what we're talking about here. I had mentioned in a previous episode that Andrew had this batch of songs he was planning for People and Things, but then abandoned most of them. So, and then he started over with the new producer and some new people in the band. I know this wasn't one of the songs, like we said earlier, but it also makes me wonder if kind of same type of situation where did we experience like an alternate reality from what could have been in Jack's Mannequin for 2 of the albums, it sounds like.
It would be incredible to see some of these ones that he's talked about, that he just scrapped released, because I'm just so curious.
Even if he releases a full another album, I'm still gonna want more. I'm still gonna be like, but what about all those other ones that are that didn't make the cut, that haven't made the cut
Yeah.
over the years. So
Yeah.
We always want more, right?
Always.
We talked a little bit about the sound of the song earlier.
Mm.
I kind of mentioned the intro, the guitar, but what are your thoughts on the sound of
Yeah.
this one?
I think that the sound of it is very much either influenced by or just kind of a sign of what was going on musically around that time. So when I was listening to it, every time I hear that guitar, I call it like the ringing that they do with that guitar before it goes into the piano. It always reminds me of something. And I was listening, to Spotify on shuffle, and I realized finally it reminds me of the song "Hear You Me" by Jimmy Eat World, but
Really?
sped up a little bit. Yeah, so the opening, the guitar that they do, if you slow that down, it seems like that's a very similar sound. The other one that it reminds me of is Everlong by the Foo Fighters.
Ooh, I love that
It
song
kind of has a
too.
very similar guitar.
Those are two songs that are like heart songs for me. So I've got to go back and
Yeah.
listen to those 3 songs in a row now.
I think there's certain songs out there, especially like in the pop punk community, where like if you hear the opening to it, it just like gives you this feeling inside, and that's the best way I can describe it. But basically, like hands down, anytime I hear the opening to Hands Down, I just like get this feeling. There's Taking Back Sunday song, Make Damn Sure, where he breathes in at the beginning, and every time you hear
Yeah.
it, it's like, all right, we're gonna get ready and sing. And this song gives me that very similar feeling to that, where they do the guitar ring and you're like, oh, I know what's coming next.
Well, wouldn't that be cool to hear live, like we said?
Yeah.
I like the way it starts because it really tells you what you're getting. It makes sense for an intro because it's going to be a rock song. It's going to be a little harder, a little bit more aggressive. The guitar, I feel like, really leads it. So it slows down into the verses a little bit. I wouldn't have thought this way after just the initial intro, but after hearing the chorus, I kind of feel like the song starts with a chorus because it starts with like the same guitar riff of the chorus. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it totally does. You're right.
Yeah, so even though he doesn't sing the words of the chorus, like I just feel after you get through the whole song and then you go back and listen again, you're like, oh, so it's not like a typical verse chorus bridge song. When those guitars and drums kick in at the beginning, it's like kicking through the front door. There are, in my opinion, few Jack's Mannequin songs like that are. Now, there's a lot of Jack's Mannequin songs I love the intro for, and there's a lot of Jack's Mannequin songs that are heavier, at least a few, but there's not too many that just like feel like it's, like I said, kicking down the door with the guitars. So definitely more of a guitar song than a piano song for the most part.
Yeah.
But it obviously wouldn't be what it is without that piano. And I'm going to call it, and I don't know if it's the right terminology, I'm not a musician, but maybe a piano arpeggio because it feels like it goes up and then down. I love that sound, the sound he's making. It reminds me a little bit of Dark Blue. I don't know if you get that at all.
Yeah, it does. And it's very playful.
Like
Yeah.
it's like leading you somewhere, like here we go.
Yeah.
And you know what? That might be the reason it didn't make the Glass Passenger. Glass Passenger isn't really a playful album.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah, it's pretty serious for the most part. Serious, a little bit darker, and I mean this song that's has some maybe darker themes. But yeah, a playful piano arpeggio doesn't really fit into Glass Pass. I don't know. That's just my speculation. There's a part at the end. Do you know what they're saying at the end of this song, or someone's saying at the end? I don't know who it is. Did you catch that?
At the very, very end, when he said, "Did that sound raw?"
I thought he said sloppy.
Oh, maybe it was sloppy. Yeah, did that sound sloppy?
That sounds sloppy, or that just sounds
Yeah.
sloppy, or something like that. He says
It was sloppy.
Okay, I listened to it several times 'cause I was trying to figure out exactly what he was saying. I guess I don't know Bobby's voice. Is it Bobby?
I couldn't tell who it was.
Okay, it's not Andrew, I
Yeah.
don't think.
I'm not sure.
I mean, it could have been John, the bassist. It could have been Jay, the drummer, and it could have been Jim Wirt. I got to expect it had to be someone playing an instrument if they said, did that sound sloppy or that just sounds sloppy?
I mean, the guitar's kind of ringing out at the end. And actually, the one thing that I love about it is when he ends it, he has very much like that raw sound to his voice. Like it's not perfect, but it kind of shows the emotion that's going into it. So I could see someone being like, do you feel like that sounded sloppy? But I love it.
Yeah, I do too. I like that. It's pretty. It gets pretty raw. No pun intended. And yeah, and I don't know who says that at the end, but the answer is to whoever said that. No, it didn't sound sloppy. You're good.
No, not at all. Before I listened to take notes on this, I before just like listened to the CD that I have, from 2011
Yeah.
because I'm old and and bought that CD from Best Buy in 2011. Either that in my car or now the YouTube, since that's the only way you can listen to it. And this is the first time I've listened with like pretty good quality headphones.
Hmm.
I did you pick up on like a very weird like synth sound in there where talks about going to the pier so they can teach you how to breathe, and then there's like this very weird keyboardy synth sound that
No, I
comes
missed
in.
that.
Yeah, until I listened with the headphones, I had never picked up on that before.
No, and I did listen on these headphones right before we got on here too.
Yeah, yeah.
They were doing a lot of that kind of stuff and everything in transit. Just kind of,
Mm-hmm.
I think because he came from such a like a typical rock band in terms of the instruments, like piano plus guitar, bass, drums, right?
Mm-hmm.
For everything in transit, they were like, oh, let's just try these things. And so that's probably some of that holdover from that era. And I guess they were doing that in the Glass Passenger too, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that was. I don't remember hearing it. Are you ready to talk some lyrics?
Sure, let's do it.
All right. We kind of already alluded to this, but like based on the lyrical content, I have to believe that the song really came out of that transit era where, what do you think? Like in general, like what the song's about or what we think the song's about. Does it feel like the transit era lifestyle?
I feel like yes, like still living that California slow down, enjoy the sun, enjoy the beach, enjoy your friends thing, but kind of with a hint of sadness. Like, oh, real life's kind of setting in and I've had
Hmm.
to go through these things, but I'm trying to recapture what that felt like to
Right.
me. And I think he kind of talks about that in the lyrics too, like going back down to the pier with your friends. I love the line, so we can teach each other how to breathe. It's such a meaningful thing. Like he talks a lot in Dear Jack about, working with alternative medicine and like that mindfulness and focus. But then I just imagine like just taking that time and decompressing with one of your friends and so that you can teach each other like, we did this and we got through it and it's okay and we can take a breath now.
Yeah, that is a cool line, and it's a neat way to start the song as well.
Mm-hmm.
He says something similar in the Lights and Buzz. He says in this song, "It's been the strangest year," and he
Yeah.
says something similar in the Lights and Buzz. So you can kind of tell it was from that. They were of the same era as well. But yeah, like I said, I mentioned this earlier, but I like that he mentions I'm 23, I'm barely 23, because again, it
Yeah.
gives you a sense of where he was in his life, and I think that's what reminded me of North. I think that's kind of what it may not be the sound, it might not be anything. It might just be the fact that he mentions he's almost 23, kind of hearkening back to 21 Invincible. I don't know.
Yeah. And then, Art School Girlfriend, isn't it? Where he mentions that he is 31.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I actually forgot that one. Oh, I wonder how many songs he mentions his age. That might be it. I don't know. There might be
Yeah.
more. Now I'm thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you know, let us know. Get in touch, and I'd like to know any other Andrew songs that he mentions his age in. Maybe there'll be something on the new album that he's working on right now.
And then, the next part where he talks about, okay, now I'm going to dispute these lyrics. I've listened to this song like 6 times in a row. I watched the live stream. I tried to watch his lips so I could make sure. I still, to this day, believe it's downtown the hot robots, not the high
hot
robots.
hot robots.
But, the copy I have in the liner notes doesn't have any lyrics with it. I see it listed everywhere as high robots, but hot robots makes more sense to me to fish for rich men.
So in the context of the overall theme of the song, I would have saw
Hmm.
the word high and thought, yeah, that makes perfect sense what he's talking
Yeah.
about here. But when I read the whole line, downtown the high robots are fishing for the rich men.
Hmm.
I guess it could be either.
Yeah, it could be. But I feel like that's really a callback to Holiday from Real when he talks about walking down along Venice Beach and like all the happenings down there.
Right.
So it felt like a really good callback to that to me.
It does. It feels like of the same story.
Hmm.
And I noticed, like, so in the copy of the lyrics we have here, and again, I just get these lyrics off of one website of the million that have lyrics to songs.
Hmm.
And I would, but I'm not sure I should go out. It's just these days I'm so afraid of crowds. That's in parentheses. Do you know why, or does that mean anything, or?
I don't know if that's just like him talking to his friends.
Hmm.
And the only thing I can think of in regards to that, kind of twofold, right? Like he just spent a lot of time in a hospital, pretty isolated.
Mm-hmm.
But this would be around the same time where he had that struggle with pneumonia and had gotten really sick.
Correct.
After you have a bone marrow transplant, there's a certain amount of time where they don't want you around a lot of people because you're more susceptible to catching infections and getting things that can be fatal to you. So I don't know if maybe that's kind of like a callback to that where, it's kind of coming from all angles, the anxiety, the recommendations from the doctors not going out,
Sure.
that kind of thing. Or, maybe it's just he doesn't want to be in a crowded room with a bunch of people and for whatever reason.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there that he's taking the doctor's advice, and that's probably not a good idea. He wants to, but it's probably not a good idea right now.
Or just, like the reintegration back into things after you've been through something so traumatic and, then you're suddenly forced into a situation which was your normal beforehand. I mean, I think collectively as a society, we're all starting to go through that now, right? Where we all used to do all of these things together. And now it's like you have that hesitancy, like, are things normal enough? And should this feel the way this feels? I think you can extrapolate that down to like, any traumatic experience any person has gone through.
Maybe he's not ready.
Yeah.
To me, the chorus doesn't have too much in it. We got to get a little out of it. To me, I interpret that, and I don't know if you interpret it differently, but I interpret that as like getting high. We got to get a little bit out of it. And that's why I said it kind of fits with that whole like, he talked about taking pills, that sort of thing. So
yeah, I interpreted that as like we got to get a lot out of it, aka party, to like get out of this situation.
So I don't think I can go without mentioning the fact that it's not often that Andrew drops an F-bomb in a song, and he did here, and like that was, I guess that was a little surprising to me because I've, this is funny, I've counted, like I have a lyric like document, and I've counted the amount of times, and I don't think I had this one on there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so he doesn't use it too often, but
I feel like this part is the part that I don't want to say relate to. And especially now that we're getting older, maybe a little bit further, but like has that nostalgia feeling for me.
Okay.
In 2011, I was finishing nursing school and I had, it was a couple years outside of college and I had met some of my best friends outside of college. And there was always that nostalgia feeling like, remember when we were like broke and living in these crappy little apartments, but like we were like right next door to each other and you could just run over to somebody's house and do whatever. And like time was endless basically. And you just like had that connection. Like that's what this reminds me of. They're living in this house and it's just like a bunch of friends, it's just kind of maybe a rundown apartment because like the garage is can't even open it.
Yeah, you can't open the garage. The cops are busting up the neighbor's place.
Yeah. But there's like something nostalgic about that and like that kind of like camaraderie and like fun that goes along with that,
Yeah, see, nostalgic for me in the way that, and again, this song's new to me. I don't have the history or even much nostalgia with it. But in reading these lyrics, I kind of think about it the way I felt when I read that part of Andrew's book where he talked about basically getting in trouble with his high school friends. And that reminded me of like some of the different but crazy stuff we used to do and got away with. And I'm like, one, why were we doing that stuff? And two, man, I kind of miss those days, but I would never do that kind of crap again. So I kind of read this verse like, oh, this is about him and his friends kind of getting in trouble, and and he probably looks back at it the same way, like how stupid were we? But those were some good times too.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that like you text your friend about, like, remember that one time when we did this, and like laugh over it, and it was great, and like, was it dumb? Yes.
And you're like, don't ever put those pictures on social media, but we can talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, like, thank goodness, right?
Oh yeah, in the time that we grew up in compared to nowadays, yeah, it's like yeah. But yeah, that's kind of what that whole second verse reminds me of, in that uncaring attitude that maybe we were able to have more when we were younger.
Yeah, and I really like the last line of this too. I don't know what it is about his last lines of things that just always are wonderful and like kind of pull you in, but I wonder if this line is about, what he was going through with Kelly. Although I think they were back together at this time, or if this is like what someone else is saying to him, but like, tell me where you're living, dear, if it's so safe anyway. It's like
Yeah.
kind of sarcastic, like, oh, if it's really that safe, you would tell me where you're at right now. So obviously it's not, you know?
Yeah, that could have been Kelly. It could have been his mom. Yeah, I saw that. I noticed that too. I actually thought you were going to point out the last line right before it goes back to the chorus and laugh about a year that felt a little more like war.
Yeah.
I love that line, but I have to admit, I didn't notice it until I read the lyrics on paper. I didn't hear it in the song. And now I want to know what that sounds like. So another thing I will listen for when I re-listen to the song, it's kind of a, I'll use your word from earlier, playful. It's kind of a playful line, but it also, like the fact that it felt more like war, like that sounds pretty dark.
That one in particular, he's hitting a pretty high note on that one. So he doesn't like really punch the word war. Again, I think it's kind of that gallows humor that goes along with going through a traumatic thing, that you just kind of have to find something funny. And like, God forbid anybody overhears you, because it's going to sound terrible that you're laughing about it. But like, that's what gets you through. I think, even now that's kind of relatable, right? Like, it's amazing to me how much this song has related to what's happened over the last couple of years, especially in my line of work. Like, I was able to draw so much out of this that I was like,
I bet.
man, I know he was talking about his treatment, but this song, just like, there were times I would put it on the car to decompress, because it just really spoke to me.
I can see why. I mean, I'm looking at these lyrics, like it reminds you of kind of simpler, easier times in your
Yeah.
life when you didn't have the weight of the world, almost literally on your shoulders.
Yeah.
And then, just kind of, sometimes we have to kind of look back and laugh about it, because what else are you going to do?
And another callback to Made for Each Other for me was the orange, when he talks about the street lamps painting the pavement orange, and then he talks about the car crash and Made for Each Other and the orange dust coating everything.
Yeah.
Normally blues is color, but like, that's two songs, and again, this kind of feels like the encore song to Made for Each Other to me.
I never would have put those two songs together, but I do see it now. See, I related it more to Holiday from Real, which you also mentioned,
Yeah.
but I could see the Made for Each Other connection.
And then, the getting the pills from the pharmacy, and in Made for Each Other, when he's talking about somebody get this man to a hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, in our last episode for the song Ohio, we talked about his use of color in the book and how there's several places in the
yeah.
book where he uses color. Maybe he does mention other colors besides blue, and now I see orange.
I also think it's funny that he says it paints the pavement orange, because I would not have described street lamps that way. Yeah, I don't know. I found it fascinating that was what he picked.
Yeah, that's what he noticed, and that's how he interpreted that. I mean, that's memory is a funny thing, and it's like in looking back on those times, that's for some reason what he remembered about those nights is the orange pavement.
Yeah. So I know you said you felt like the chorus was really simple, or didn't have a lot of substance to it.
Please enlighten me though.
No. I was just curious about your opinion on it. Like, do you feel like the verses have more substance to the song? Is that what is keeping you engaged in the song, because the chorus is so simple?
I like Andrew as a storyteller, so I always and I'm a lyrics guy anyway. And there's a lot of artists I love, and but I'm a lyrics guy, so I listen for the story, or even if it's not a story, I listen for the lyrics. I kind of want to know what they're saying, or so therefore, I mean, by default, instrumentals don't do in general as much for me. So I always listen for that. It doesn't mean that the chorus is less, but I appreciate the story and the verses here.
Yeah.
But the chorus just does something different for me. Actually, I got to say, I like the chorus better overall.
Really?
Looking at the whole picture, I prefer the chorus just because I like the sound of it.
Yeah.
Lyrics aside, I just like the sound of the chorus better. I prefer it when the guitars are going, when the drums are hitting pretty hard. I mean, I don't know if it's the production, but it feels like the drums are harder hitting than any Jack's Mannequin song I've ever heard.
I agree.
It really surprised me when I first put it on. Because like I said, going back to, I first heard the song as an Instagram live stream, didn't have any other instruments. I put this on afterward, shortly after that point, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, those drums are hitting so hard. And so I love that sound. Like I like a whole range of music. You know, I like ballads, pop punk. I like a little bit of punk rock. So some heavier music. Anyway, but I appreciate the drums and the guitar, especially in the chorus here. So yeah, so it wasn't to say that the chorus was any less for me.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, the chorus is kind of cheeky, which I really like about it. But I think it's the story going through. You're like just waiting to get that next chapter as you go. And that's kind of what keeps me engaged in it.
Yeah. So do you have a favorite part of the song, like a favorite lyric, or just in general a part of this favorite part?
Yeah, so I think that my favorite part to it probably, I think it's that bridge portion where he's talking about, going down the hill to the parking lot and going to the pharmacy with his friends and all that. I don't know, it just paints such a good picture to it.
Yeah, it's very vivid.
Yeah, where you're like, you kind of feel like you're on that journey too.
Hmm.
I mean, in all honesty, I love every part of this song, so it's like hard to choose your favorite, but as far as lyrics go, it would be my favorite part, I think.
You know, like I said, I like a lot of his songs. I look at this as a story, and that's kind of the meat of it. That gets to the meat of it there. That's the best part. You can visualize what he's talking about, which I love about Andrew lyrics.
Yeah.
I feel like I can see it without, just by listening.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like the opening to the song and then the closing to the song, like that guitar ringing out at the beginning before the piano starts, and then like the end where his voice is getting a little bit raw, those are probably my favorite two parts that have nothing to do with the lyrics. So
I like the piano so I like that combination of the piano and the other instruments during the chorus. It feels heavy, but you have this, you described it playful. It's like playful piano going throughout, and it's like, wow. And I feel like it's taking you somewhere. It's like you're following these other instruments, but you also have this piano carrying you out.
the more that I'm like kind of reflecting on this as we're sitting here and I'm like hearing the song in my head, that piano part kind of a little bit sounds like what you would hear, not necessarily in a fair, but like on the boardwalk with like the music that's walking by, kind of that up and down sound to it. So I could see where that, being out on the beach, on the pier, that would have been like kind of an inspiration behind that.
I wonder, yeah. Yeah, you picked a good one here. Like I said, this was a surprise for me. It's harder, as I'm sure it is for all people, when you have this artist that you love for so long, to get into a song that came out 10 years prior and you missed it. It's a little bit harder to get into. Like I feel that way about a lot of the B-sides that I missed at the time of. But I think with time, I think this song would move up on my playlist.
Yeah, I think it was so surprising to me, because in the age of going to Best Buy or, FYE or pick your record store, CD store, I didn't even realize that this wasn't included on so much. And so I just thought that like this is part of the album, and
that's how I felt about those 4 tracks that I had at the end of from iTunes.
Yeah.
And like I said on a prior episode, I felt like that should have been its own EP, and it very well could have. And I think I would have appreciated it more, those other songs, as that.
Yeah.
But I don't know, and maybe I would have appreciated. I would have at least known about this song had it been released on something, but that I heard. Where does this rank in the overall Andrew McMahon catalog for you? Is it like top tier Andrew, or?
I mean, it's this and Last Straw Arizona that are probably tied for first place for me.
Are we talking rarities or like overall every Andrew mixtape?
Overall, everything. Those 2 songs I think are at the very top. It's hard because I think Everything in Transit is like, it's the perfect album.
Yeah.
You can listen to it front to back. I don't skip a thing ever. It's very rare that I can listen to an album for years and like not be like, oh, look, this song could have gone. Like it's perfect. That as a whole, it's hard to rank against, but these 2 songs I think are the 2 that just like elicit so much emotion inside of me that I would put this one at the very top. Definitely top 3.
That's incredible. So are you jealous of someone like me that those 2 songs are like the newest songs to me by Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, yes, and a little bit no, because every time you're like, this doesn't, I don't have the nostalgia feeling because it was so many
Yeah.
years ago. I'm like, oh, but I'm so sad for you because I want you to
Yeah.
feel what I feel.
I get that too. Yeah, I understand
Yeah.
that. Yeah, because it's weird. It's like on one hand, it's exciting because oh my gosh, there's new Andrew, and I didn't have to wait for an album to drop or him to officially release a song,
Hmm.
which I'm hoping we'll get some this year. A whole another album possibly, but this is like sound from another time though. This is obviously so hearing
Yeah.
this song, calling it New Andrew. It's not obviously new Andrew, but it's Jack's Mannequin that I just missed 10 years ago, but it's heavier from anything he's doing nowadays. So it's like
Yeah.
for me, it was pretty unexpected for well several reasons, but that was one of them. It's just like I'm used to Zombies on Broadway, Upside Down Flowers, Get on My Wave, and then oh, there's this like rock song from another era that I missed somehow.
Yeah. And I mean, I'll probably be stoned over this, but I kind of miss it in all honesty. Like,
Yeah,
don't get me wrong, everything he's put out is great. In general, like all of the projects that he's done is great, but like I kind of miss the heaviness from Something Corporate. I miss kind of that extra, and seeing other bands in concert, like seeing Motion City Soundtrack or Anberlin that I had seen around the same time. I'm like, oh, and then you like go and you stand in there and it's like it's heavy and you get that bass and you get the drums and everything. I'm like, I kind of miss that,
yeah.
from what he's doing now, which again is still great. It's just different.
I don't think you're alone in the fan base. Like I think a lot of us want some rock songs.
Yeah.
It's more pop rock now, but like I don't know if we'll ever get like the grunge slash pop punk influenced Andrew again. But maybe I'm still hopeful. Like I said, if
Yeah.
Jim Wart came back to the fold for even an EP and they're just like, hey, let's just let's just throw out a couple rock songs together, like that would be amazing.
See, maybe he needs to have like another like if you see Jordan moment, but like as an adult, and then we can
Yeah,
get like
a
a real
sequel.
heavy.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
angsty 40-year-old Andrew.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Hey, I'm around the same age as him. I get angsty, so
yeah.
so why
I
not?
don't know. I don't know what it'll be like. Cecilia makes him mad one day, and he's just got like this real big banger or something.
Ooh, about his angsty teen in
Yeah, there you go.
just a few years away. I can relate to that. So
Yep.
so I've been introduced, fortunately, like I said, meeting people in the fan base these last couple of years. I've been like introduced to several songs, or even a whole collection in one case of songs that I'd never even heard of. Just after one of the first episodes, somebody shared the Galaxy sessions with me, which I had heard most of those songs already, but I hadn't heard them as the complete set, and I was missing a few of them. So some of that stuff was new to me.
Yeah.
So it's just been really cool to kind of collect all that stuff, but honestly, this one ranks pretty high
Yeah.
among all the things that I hadn't heard prior to 2 years ago.
Well, good. I'm glad.
But like I said, I was excited to talk about this because of all the reasons we talked about.
Yeah.
Do you have any final thoughts on the song? Anything we missed?
I think that we covered everything. I guess now is the time to get the troops rallied to start requesting this song everywhere on this tour. Like maybe this will be the new like I woke up in a car or something. We can get this one instead.
Absolutely. Well, hey, I will start the chant.
Okay, well you're in charge. Lead the march.
Yeah, let's see how much trouble I get into. I'm sure other fans will join me, but yeah, I don't think Andrew takes requests on tour. So, well, thank everyone for listening to the show, and feel free to rate the podcast on Apple or Spotify if you would. And of course, thanks to Lindsay for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's always good to chat with a fellow Andrew fan. It's not often that I get introduced to, in a sense, to quote unquote new Andrew song. So I got to dig in a little bit to something I wasn't familiar with and talk about it with someone who was familiar with it. So if you'd like to be a future guest on the show and talk about one of your favorite songs, or maybe even your least favorite Andrew song, I don't know, email somethinginthe@gmail.com or DM me on Instagram. Feel free to comment anytime on social media. Once again, thank you, Lindsay, for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, until next time.